Today, we face many complex problems and situations. However, all too often the solution to these issues is a simple, single action that sounds so easy. And if we just did it, we'd create these miraculous changes and everything would be wonderful. Many of us accept these answers because they come from our managers, leaders, and supposed experts. However, others of us recognize the complexity of the issue and that their so-called solution doesn't really sound like anybody thought this through. So we wonder, how are we going to do that? How exactly is that going to work? How will doing that solve this problem without creating a bunch of new problems? Did anyone think about that? Now, if you're bold enough to voice these questions of how, you might get the answer I usually got.
Just do it!
Or you may just get a problem statement, a dissertation describing the problem in depth, but no solution to actually fix the problem. Or you may get an explanation like this one I received that spews a lot of words in order to give that tried and true intellectual non-answer. The team is working very hard to embrace a meaningful and intentionally adaptable approach to the planning process with purposeful stakeholder engagement so we can manage the situation and put in place a process that will ensure issues are consistently and persistently addressed through procedures that support equitable decision-making by actively shifting power to the stakeholders, making participation accessible to all, by centering relationship building by honoring people's experience and agency in drafting the procedures, and by creating long-lasting capacity building by offering the tools and resources necessary to implement and continue with the identified solutions. Did you get all that? Whichever of these non-answers you get, you know one thing for sure. These people can't tell us how to solve a problem because they don't know how. Today, the world is full of people. Our colleagues, managers, politicians, media personalities, influencers, and even supposed experts, all telling us what we need to do in order to resolve a complex issue, but not how their solution works. And if we press them to explain how, they typically respond by pushing back on us and even trying to intimidate us because they don't want us to know that they haven't thought through the details. They can't give us the details because they don't know how things work. They don't know what pieces are needed or how they all fit together and work together. And no one wants to be associated with a plan that doesn't work and risk losing their position, power, or influence. As a woman working in a male-dominated role, I learned early on to challenge my very confident male colleagues by always asking them, how? And I was never intimidated by their pushback because I knew that if they pushed back, it meant they didn't think things through and they couldn't tell me how. I also knew that if I was the one who figured out how to do something and then I made it happen, I had power in my workplace. And the guys couldn't take away my power because that would require them to understand and work with the details better than me. As women, we have a huge advantage over men in figuring out how to get things done. And let's be honest, we all know this. Even when we choose to sit back and let men take the lead, we still know we could do it better. Men struggle with complex situations because they function in the blue zone, where their desire for autonomy drives them to break things apart, organize them, and categorize them. Since they don't focus on how they connect and interact, they struggle with putting all the detailed pieces together, get stressed out, and just want to get things done. Women, however, function in the pink zone, where we have a desire to connect and work together. Therefore, we want to understand how multiple pieces connect, interact, and influence each other. Consequently, we're good at managing lots of details and figuring out how to build a process that is done well so it efficiently delivers the results we want. As women, our job in the workplace is to challenge our male colleagues who just want to get things done. by always asking the questions of how. And we can't be intimidated by our male colleagues who don't want to answer the question. Now, I know this can be hard for many of us because we're conditioned to believe that men are better than us at figuring out how things work and knowing how to get things done. That's why they're so confident. It's this traditional conditioning that gives us permission to sit back and let men do all the hard work, and it tells us that our job is just to clean up after them. But then as we're cleaning up, we see all the things they didn't do right, or do as well as we know it could be done. And we're frustrated as we think, I could have done this so much better. And we kick ourselves for sitting back and missing out on the opportunity. We've also experienced this frustration in our personal lives. And contrary to what many housewives wanted to believe, the man that frustrated them at home didn't walk into the workplace and instantly transform into a great problem solver. Men are men. They think and act the same way in the workplace as they do in the rest of their lives. So if we want better results, then we have to choose to step up and lead our colleagues in figuring out how to solve an issue and get the best results. As a leader, we have to challenge any of men's blue zone behavior that wants to rush through the process just so they can get things done. More importantly, we must challenge their blue zone traits that make them believe they can do what they want, when they want, how they want, and get the results they want without any pushback from another entity or negative consequences. In other words, we have to introduce a huge dose of reality into their thinking. To understand what I'm talking about, here's an example of a complex issue and the solution many of us have accepted without asking how. Many of us believe that in order to keep people out of poverty, we just need to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Problem solved, and we're done. However, when we introduce reality and understand how things work, we realize there are consequences. The person who made $12 wants $17 an hour based upon their better skill and experience. Then other workers also want a $5 raise based upon their skill and experience. Eventually, a worker does the math and realizes that the unskilled worker got a 50% pay raise, so now others demand a 50% pay raise. If labor conditions are good and labor's in demand, workers begin shopping around for higher wages. Workplaces start competing against each other for labor, and the most in-demand skills see a tremendous increase in pay. As labor costs increase, workplace margins decrease, so workplaces raise prices for their products and services, creating inflation. Increased labor rates and inflation raise the poverty level, and eventually, the lowest paid workers are back to living in poverty. We always have to think things all the way through and deal with all of the consequences. However, this process can easily frustrate and discourage men who just want to get things done. So to keep them engaged, I divert their attention. I encourage them to express their knowledge and expertise because they want to succeed and protect their status in the workplace. When we work together to figure out how to do something and it works, everyone feels good about themselves. And as women, when we work down in the details, we gain a lot of knowledge and experience about how things work and how to get things done. We become more confident and more comfortable asserting ourselves. So be bold and always ask, how? Then step forward and be the leader who uses systems thinking to figure out how. To learn more about how women get things done, watch these related videos. This is Dot Callahan asking you to help me turn the woman in the room into the women in the room. Sign up for my newsletter, subscribe to my YouTube channel, or follow the Woman in the Room on social media. It's up to you. Just keep watching and sharing my videos to get advice from a woman who's been there, dealt with that, and knows what works.